All right. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome, everybody, to the Let's Stay Together talk show. Your host, Reverend Rick McCain, along with my baby, my girl, my boo, Brenda McCain. How you doing today, baby?
I'm doing good because we have the GOAT who had a birthday
Yes.
on this program with us, even though nobody know he on here. But we want to say for Let's Stay It Together, child, happy belated birthday.
Happy
And he's a
birthday to you.
baby, a man, grown
Happy
man,
birthday
baby.
to you. Happy birthday.
yeah, all of that good stuff.
So we're talking about the Rockford goat himself, Kenny Crawford, who helps us produce our show. I don't know where we would be without it because I've done my share of messing ups. I've had some bad days.
Oh.
I'm not gonna say I had some good days, but I had some really bad days with the show. But thankful to Kenny for helping us out past birthday. So belated happy birthday to him. And anybody else that has birthdays during April, we're shouting out birthdays to you as well. Before I go on, I do want to do this one thing. I had it up here, and I want to, send our condolences because I was reading earlier about a shooting that they had at a high school in Texas, and we are praying for those. They're saying that at least 4 were injured in a shooting in shooting that they had at a high school in Texas. That's coming from you. I'm like, Bob, it's saying what I'm saying. At least 4 was injured at a Wilmer Hutchinson High School in Dallas. They said at least 4 was been hospitalized at a shooting in Dallas Tuesday afternoon. Dallas police respond to a 1 p.m. to a shooting incident reported at the school located at 5500 Landon Road. One student told CBS News Texas that she heard 7 gunshots. Authorities confirmed around 2:20 p.m. There was no activity. Threats to the school campus had been secured. So we're praying for the school is Wilmer Hutchinson High School, and it said right now I'm hearing 4 were injured. I haven't got any updates of anyone being killed, anything, which is a blessing that did not happen. But we will keep you posted if any more information comes up. We've got a wonderful guest, Carrie Young McWilliams, is coming back on the show. If you missed her being on the show before, you missed a treat. So make sure you catch her today. We got some great things we're gonna be talking about, and some decisions I'm gonna be making. I'm thinking about how I'm gonna change the show. I'm always thinking about things that I can make it a bit better. And I really want to get more involved into those relationships letters because we get so many of them coming in. We want to, maybe put more time into that instead of waiting to the last moment. And so that's something of interest to me as well. Babe, you got anything you want to say before we start the show?
I want to do a shout out to a former Julianite, a girlie, Trinda Jones Rice, opened up her eclectic artistry boutique, accessory and clothing boutique in Flossmoor, Illinois here. And they had the ribbon cutting ceremony this past Saturday. And when I tell you it was beautiful, awesome and beautiful, with the mayor coming out, her pastor of the church blessing the boutique. And I just want to keep her lifted up in prayer that she stays humble and let God use her, because just before we went into the building, it was 150 people standing outside just waiting to cheer her on, because she had a previous boutique and it caught on fire and she escaped with her life. So God has his hand on her. So congratulations again, Etrinda, and to your husband, Robert.
Yeah, and we hope that out of those 150 people that was there to cheer her on, they actually purchased something too.
Oh, they purchased a lot.
So that that's a good thing. To start it off, with people and that, and you hope that continues on with her and its success, as you said. She's humbles herself and allows God to use her to be a blessing for sure. So without further ado, we are going to go. Hey, Kenny, have we found out anything about when the SOAR Awards is going to be coming on the air? Is that still a tentative? I'll let Kenny give you some answers on that. But before we go on, as we go on, I should say, babe, you got anything before we go to our subject today?
Yep, I'm good.
All right. So what we talking about?
On Christian Real, we are talking about reaching your godly goals.
Everybody, everybody that's is a Christian, that becomes a Christian, and is thinking about a Christian, it's always them wanting to reach their godly goals. They want to do these God-sized goals. They want to achieve God-sized things. They want to do exceedingly and abundantly more than they can ask or think. They have these God-sized goals attitude. You'll hear preachers talking about, and you've got to be ready to reach your God-sized goals. And I'm telling you right now, in the name of Jesus, you will reach your God-sized goals today. Shout hallelujah. And we get all excited like, girl, he was talking about reaching those God-sized goals, and I want to do it because I'm tired of being in a situation that I don't reach anything, but I want to be able to reach higher. We hear these things so much, and it's so good to hear them. It encourages our souls. But what does it mean to reaching your God-sized goals? And I saw some things up here that I on Facebook and stuff, not Facebook, website. And I picked this one thing that I really thought was very important. And it was saying, I don't know why now I've got the cough in my throat. Setting God-sized goals. Godly goals often involve stepping outside of one's comfort zone and trusting God for greater things. And I love what that means, because godly goals often involve stepping outside of one's comfort zone. So that basically means that not depending on you reaching your God-sized goals, but stepping outside of your comfort zone into God's zone or will for your life by trusting Him for greater things. And stepping out of the comfort zone, Brenda, for a lot of people is very difficult, because they're Christians. They want to be able to, receive the blessings of the Lord, and all the wonderful things of being a child of God, but they don't want to step out of the comfort zone. And what stepping out of a comfort zone basically means that sometimes you're going to go through some difficulties before you can get the things of God. And we don't want to do that. Out of the comfort zone may mean that you have to leave that job and start your business. But financially, you don't see it, so you don't want to envision it. Girl, I heard him say, there's some people out there that's going to start a business, but that's me, girl, but I don't have the finance. And so it means you have to step outside of your comfort zone and trust God. And baby, that's very difficult for a lot of people.
Oh, very difficult. If you don't have faith like a mustard seed, and you don't trust God and just turn it all over to Him, believe that whatever you pray to Him for and ask for, that He will keep His promises, you're always going to falter and realize the devil, Satan's going to take over and say, give you 10 reasons why you shouldn't. And then one main reason is God of why you should. You're not going to take that, because you're going to be like, well, all of this could go wrong. I could fail at this. I don't want to, like you said, step out of my comfort zone. I have a decent job. I'm in a decent marriage. I love this. I'm educated. And I'm used to setting the pace, and I know what's going to happen. I don't want to charter into unsolicited territories of where I don't know what's going to happen, if the bill's going to be paid. I consistently have things in order, but God, trust God and see it through. But we don't do that. So the first thing we do, like I said, I can't do it. I don't see it. you have to see it first and believe it, because if I don't see how my future is going to be predicted, I sure don't think Rick will see it. So, and no matter how much somebody trying to help you with something, you have to believe it and you have to see it.
Yeah. And so it made me think about zones. And there are hazardous zones, there are dangerous zones, there are cautious zones, and there are uncomfortable zones that we live in each and every day. But we don't want to. So once we step out of our comfort zone, which basically is saying once we release the control that we want to have over our destiny, which is basically what it is. Because when we're trying to reach God-sized goals, we want to be able to reach the destiny that God has for us, aka what we want from God. That's basically what it is. What we want from God, but we'll characterize it into what God wants for us. But what makes us uncomfortable, because when you're out of your comfort zone, you can be in a hazardous zone or a dangerous zone, and that means stepping into something that you don't have control or do not foresee or have the vision that God has to be able to see the direction that you're going to go through. And if we really want to be honest, what we want when we step out of our comfort zone is to God to make everything that we do easy, so we're not in a dangerous zone or an uncomfortable zone to where we have to start thinking about, do I still want to trust God, as it says, and trusting God for greater things? Do I really want to trust God for greater things? Because the direction that I'm going in right now seems kind of dangerous, seems kind of cautious, seems kind of hazardous. And so now I don't have the control over it anymore. I don't know. Maybe, Brenda, this wasn't of God. Because now that I don't have control and it's not going my way, I can just say, no, that's it. The devil's busy. No, it's just you not having enough faith in the direction that you're going, that God is moving you in, and it's taking you into an uncomfortable zone, and you're not happy about that.
That's true. And with that, I want to be clear about this. You always used to say this: God is not a genie in a bottle that you rub the bottle. They say if you ask, you shall receive. You got to put the work in, and the work is your faith. What is that saying? Faith without works
Is dead.
is dead. So you have to do that. You have to believe. You got to pray. You got to get in line with God. You got to study the word. It's not like, oh, I'm going to ask God for A, B, C, and D. And if he deliver on this, then I would trust him and put my faith in him. That's not how it works. And I'm going to use this as a prime example. Going back to Etrenda, how she put the work in for 2 years. She was just crying and like, what I'm gonna do. She started praying harder, working hard. Said, God, you know my heart. I'm gonna do the work. I'm gonna do what I need to do. I'm gonna stay, prayerful and steadfast. And after, almost 2 years, he blessed her. She didn't give up. So that's what I'm saying. Doing the godly goals, having those, doing that for something you want to acquire. You can't just like, I'm gonna rub this bottle and God gonna bless me with this. It's a lot of preparation you have to do to be in line with God to get what he has for you. And I'm not saying he won't bless you, but you gotta, as the saying goes, you take one step, he'll take 2 or 3. Some of us don't even take the first step. We just waiting. I don't know who we waiting on, but we just waiting for it to happen.
And we talk about it in the world, and when you set goals, there, when you have a goal that you're trying to set, there are procedures or steps that you have to take. And that wonderful song says, order my steps in your word, dear Lord. Lead me, guide me every day. Let your anointing. So we say those words and we fall in love with them. But when we want God-sized goals, we have to understand that one of the things we have to do within those goals is to trust God to order our steps. to trust God to lead me and guide me every day, to expect God's anointing because we have done these things. And that's how we get to godly goals, to be able to receive godly goals or reaching godly goals. Reaching godly goals means that you're going to a process. And the process is not always going to be easy. I was, one time I was riding to work and I was saying, God, I know this is not what you wanted for us in this world. We're always fighting and killing and hurting and stuff like that. That seems like there's so much trials and tribulations that in this world. How do we get to reaching our godly goals when we have so much hatred and evil and difficulties? And that's not even outside of our family. I mean, we can have that in our own family, not just the world. And how do we do this? But reaching godly goals means we step outside of that. I'm not comfortable. Now, I'll give you an example. I don't like flying. I really don't. I don't like being 40,000 feet in the air. It's an uncomfortable thing. I get out of my comfort zone because I want to go somewhere. So when we went to Hawaii and we in the plane for 8 hours, I'm praying before we get to the airport. I'm praying when we on the plane. I'm praying in between the plane, in between the ride. I'm saying, God, thank you for taking us this far. Been 4 hours. Thank you, God, for taking us this far. I'm uncomfortable, but I stepped outside of my comfort zone because I wanted to go somewhere. What am I saying? If you want to go somewhere with God, you have to be able to step out of your comfort zone and into God's zone for your life. Which sometimes it may take you in positions that you're not comfortable with. I wasn't comfortable with the flying. You might not be comfortable with, leaving your job and starting your own company. You may not be comfortable with finishing your education so you can get this amazing job. You may not be comfortable about this house that you're trying to, because you don't have the finances, or this car that you're trying to get. There's so many things that you may not feel comfortable about, but in order to reach them, you have to step out of the way so God can take care of it. And a lot of times what happens when we want to reach God-sized goals, we want to be able to be a part of reaching the goal. Right. And we want to be a participant of doing it. We don't want to be a person that is, and we want to anticipate it, but we don't want to be a participant. That's what I wanted to say. We want to be a part of the anticipation. Oh, I'm just expecting. I'm looking for a miracle. But we don't want to be the participants to be able to follow God. And it says, godly goals often involve stepping outside of one's comfort zone and trusting God for greater things. And let me just say this. What happens a lot of times when we're trying to reach our godly goals, if it doesn't move fast enough for us, we start thinking that it's not a goal for us. Because we don't have the patience to allow God to move us in that direction, to mold us to be able to, so we can reach those godly goals. I love that song that says, step by step, I'm marching up. I'm walking closer to my goal, step by step. And we don't want that, because a lot of times, if like Brenda said, if you take one step, God will take two. That's not biblical. But a lot of times, if we take a step and we ain't happy with that step, and or God forbid that it seemed like we went backwards, we will give up on a godly goal because we want it to be easy. We don't want to have to do anything for it. We don't want to have no faith. We don't have no trust. We don't have no persistence. We want to be able to just say, like Creflo Dollar was saying, money cometh to me now. Oh yeah, I've been praying a lot of times that God would just drop some money in the sky. Now I know He can do exceedingly abundantly more He can ask a thing, so I know He can do that. But that doesn't mean He's going to do it. And we want things to happen for us instantaneously and how we want it to be done. And when we look for reaching God-sized goals, I said this one time: how can you have a how can you have a bad attitude? And I phrase it another way. How can you try to reach a goal for a God that's unreachable? I want you to hear that. We're trying to reach a goal to a God that's unreachable. What does that mean? God can do exceedingly abundantly more than we can actually think. So we could never reach where God is. But we're trying to reach a godly goal, but we won't go to the unreachable God that we can never get to where He is. So I'm saying, instead of us following the God that we could never reach, the godly goals that He has for our lives, we decide to make our own godly goals. And this is what I think a godly goal should be for me. Hi, I'm Rick McCain, and I'm a Christian, and I believe that my godly goal is this. But what is God's godly goal? Because it says they challenge individuals to believe in God's power and plan for their lives. But we don't do that. We want to reach our godly goals, the ones we want. My godly goal is to win a house, win the lottery. My godly goal is to get money for my education. We make our own goals and we wrap them around in a godly goals. It's almost like you watch the Ten Commandments when they were making the calf. The calf was not made out of pure gold; it was wood, and they tapered the gold around it. So it made it seem like it was a golden calf, but it was like a wooden calf that was had gold around it. And so a lot of times we try to perpetrate.
Yeah, that's a big perpetration.
And make it seem like this is God's goal for my life. And so the key thing that you want to hear what we're talking about, we're saying reaching your godly goals, not reaching your goals that you've made godly. And so you have to be able to first step out of the way, step out of your comfort zone, and then trust God. And God will tell you, will show you. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't still get the house. You can't still get the job. You can't still get the car. He can still bless you with those things. Those are blessings. But when we say we want to reach godly goals, we have to understand that these are goals that God has planned for our lives, not what we want for our lives. So reaching godly goals, you want to reach them? Get out the way.
Oh, I'm over there just marinating on that. These godly goals, again.
These godly Joes.
Godly, say that 10 times. Godly goals is something, it's attainable if you really want it. And it's like you always, like every morning I have a little devotional thing and read different spiritual references or scriptures and everything of how God will give you the world if He know you ready for it. Like some people say, well, I'm ready for my money, but He's watching you of how you handling your money with the small things. Of course, if you're not handling a situation right, He's not going to give you that something that you asked for until you think you're ready for. It's not like a punishment, but in order to reach those godly goals in your life, the key word is God. You got to put Him first. If you don't put God first in your life, then how can you expect Him to do everything you're asking for? Again, I say He's not a genie in a bottle. He's God. You have to pray to Him, talk to Him. I mean, I would never forget when a friend of mine said to me, how do you pray to God? Brenda, I said, I talk to Him like I'm talking to you. And she said, oh my God, you did? I said, I'm not cursing at you. I'm a relatable person. God don't want the dust down. This God, He want to know your heart, your soul. What you're asking for. What do you want Him to do? And He's happy to do it. But He wants His children to be able to come to Him with, God, I'm afraid. I need, out of my faith is unwavering, but now I feel like I'm being tested. Tell God that. I mean, He know anyway. But the thing is, we like, no, we listen to Satan in 1 minute. Satan could say something, and that's it. The whole, let me have my God side goals, then went out the window. Because Satan just showed you, oh, my friend lost her car. She just got her job. Okay, that was your friend. What about you? What are you doing? And so we have to stop doing that. The comparison. Well, this happened to Rick. Whenever it's something that's bad happening to someone, we get on that bandwagon with them. But some of us, with something happening good to someone, instead of saying, oh, God's in the blessing business, He in their neighborhood, He going to be coming in mine. Well, that's not going to happen to me. So it's like you have to really know how to pray. And I'm not saying everything I ask for from God I get. Because some things God like, no, she's not ready for that. And I'm not going to give her that. She still needs to grow in the word. I don't care how seasoned I am to others. I'm still a babe in Christ to God.
And so going back to the God sides goals, I want to say these things, and we're gonna cut it short because we get our guests coming on. I want to try to get as close to 7:30 as possible, but it says prayer and faith. It says setting godly goals often involves praying and seeking God's guidance. It's about trusting God to equip and empower individuals to pursue their goals with faith. It also says living out faith. Godly goals are not just about achieving, but about living out one's faith in a way that glorifies God. They involve reflecting God's character and the values in all areas. By setting these godly goals, individuals can experience greater meaning, purpose, and joy for their lives while also aligning with God's will and purpose. You're looking to reaching godly goals, you're going to have to come out of that comfort zone and trust God and understand what it means to reach godly goals, because you're looking for God's plan for your life, not what you've planned for your life. We're going to go on and play some music. Today is going to be Smokey Norval Day. We'll be playing his music today. And we're going to start off with Dear God, have a commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to have our special guest on the show, which is Carrie Young McWilliams. And Brenda will let us know what she's talking about because they didn't share it with me. So we'll be right back after these songs and commercial break. All right. Excuse me. All right, everybody. Babe, what you got for us as I try to deal with my little call?
One of these stories here in Chicago. We're going to be all over the globe tonight. Man killed in West Loop shootout, remembered as beloved doorman who helped all. His name was Flemister, 61 years old, was on his way home from his job, had an altercation with a young guy named Luther Hopkins III, who was 24, of Calumet City here in Illinois. They said the man, Flemister, was a pleasant, peaceful man, and they don't know everything that happened that caused the young guy to shoot him as they was at the CTA Blue Line. The thing is, they were saying that they could see, the niece says she could see her uncle probably trying to stop an altercation between someone, and the young guy pulled out the gun and killed him. But the thing that gets me with this man, they said they charged the man with unlawful use of a weapon, not murder.
The man died?
That's why I said, wow, so why don't he get charged with murder?
I don't know. Yeah, I border on certain things with this because I think that we don't have any kind of size goals nowadays other than trying to be tough or important or bad or something like that. And we have no respect for each other or individuals. We've lost the respect for our elders. We lost the respect for individuals. Nowadays, it's just a lot of just, you're going to respect me because of what I have. I've got a gun, I've got a knife, I got this. I can do this, I can do that. I mean, it's all, everything is more wrapped around in the process of evil than good. And I think we've gotten so desensitized to some of these things because you hear in Chicago that crime in Chicago is down, but then you see
really?
you hear it, you see things like this. They show statistics that the crime in Chicago is down. They're going to be putting more police officers on trains and downtown area to stop the youth for doing certain things. I just think that people are just so rebellious and so angry, and they don't want to do anything. Everybody wants something just to be given to them. We're not trying to study to show ourselves approved. We're not doing anything. The young are just just becoming more like vigilantes and villains instead of being victorious in their quest and goals and achievements. And I can do all things in Christ that strengthened me. It's just kind of sad when you see these stories. There's a lot of them, but we've got so desensitized by them. I don't really think a lot of people even blink an eye anymore. They say something like, that's that shouldn't happen," and then we just go on our way. And so we just gotta, as Christians, we gotta continuously just pray for the world, that as that song says, a change is gonna come and for the better.
Sam Cooke. It is sad though that we're immune to that. It's like if you don't hear about 10 crimes in a month from across the world, you'd be like, "What? We ain't getting no crime." But every day is something, and it's sad though, because these are lives being taken, and the people who doing it, like you said, just because I had a gun, I have more power than you.
Yeah.
Just because I could do this, it's like this doesn't make it right. But this next story, I'm gonna take you a little further south here from
And I want to say something like that because I have sympathy for that man, because I'm kind of one of those persons too that if I see something being wrong, I want to help. But you have to be so cautious.
Yeah.
Because you never know. I mean, nowadays, as a good Samaritan, you have to have good common sense too. I mean, know the situation before you jump into it. If the person has a gun, be prepared for that, because you don't want to lose your life trying to be a good, godly person. And this world is just kind of, people just don't care.
They don't. They don't care at all. This next story takes us to Florida. Teacher now, ex-principal now, arrested, accused of hosting house party for teens in Florida. I mean, this is the first I ever heard of this. A former elementary school principal and a current teacher are facing charges with allegedly giving these children alcohol at their house in Cocoa Beach, Florida. I mean, the kids or neighbors complaining it's too much loud music going on over there. It's young, underage kids coming out of the house, the property, with beer and alcohol, drinking and smoking. Teachers and principals. This is what we're doing now in America. And they said it's okay with them. The current teacher, Carly Anderson, was charged with disorderly conduct and disorderly intoxication. She told the arresting officer, "I don't care. Go ahead, put me in a car. If you don't take me to the police station, I'm just going to call my husband." Who? I mean, wow. This your teacher just saying that. So, babe, it's letting you know, as the country went down, as they say, hell in a handbag, we just doing whatever we want to do and don't care.
Well, first let me say this is not all teachers and all
No.
principals, because you did plural, and this just happened
This
to be
teacher and this
this just had to be this individual. I just want to clean that air up, because you don't want to make it seem like every teacher and stuff like that, because it's almost, if you're a black person, one black person commits a crime, everybody committing a crime, and you want to kind of signaled that out. It's a shame that a teacher and a principal who is sitting in a position of authority, responsibility, and something that students are supposed to honor and look to for guidance would guide them in a direction of helping them with alcohol and mischievous things to do, and have no remorse about what they have done. And it's, it kind of says the thing about many are called, few are chosen. You've got a lot of people in a profession that is supposed to educate and bring up our children in the way they should go, that is not qualified to do that. And so I'm not shocked by this situation, but it's appalling because you want you look for better from people in those positions, and when that happens, it does look bad. Okay, no guess yet. Okay, so we find out where Carrie's at. So we're about to be ready to go back on the air, everybody. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Let's Stay Together talk show. Your host, Reverend Rick McCain, along with my baby, my girl, my boo. I don't know if Carrie, did you send Carrie the link so she can get on there?
I did, and I thought she said she had it.
Okay, so just check with her. So we're waiting for Carrie to come on. I'm going to see if I need to send her a link again real quick. But we've been having an interesting conversation about a teacher and a principal who had provided children with some alcohol. Brenda, while we're doing that, talk about that for a few seconds.
Okay. You know what? Are you doing Facebook or text? Because she said she'll respond quickly by text if you want to shoot her link on here.
I don't know if I have the link where I can send
Okay.
that
Well,
way, but hold
again,
on.
talking about the teacher and the principal having a party for underage kids at their house. And it's kind of disturbing. This happened in Florida, that they felt as though it wasn't a problem to do that. You're aiding and abetting bad habits to underage kids, grammar school and high school, giving them alcohol and giving them substances. Now, the thing that get me with one of the people there, adult says she's seen the kids coming outside, a neighbor coming out vomiting, and they was just really sick. And the teacher was like, "Get back in the house, get back in the house." So you know you're doing something wrong. You don't want the outside people to see this.
I got to stop you. I sent you the link, send it to her.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just going to carry that on. Is that, basically the story is basically that the teachers adhered to this. They were in cahoots. They were the ones that actually helped out with the situation on that. And I mean, like I said again, we're so desensitized about a lot of things that happen in this world. We're used to, it's like, it's appalling, but it's like, yeah, well, it's something that you wouldn't expect. I mean, and I go back to the days when you used to watch TV and you have a husband and wife on there. And I think of the Dick Van Dyke Show, and him and Laura, even though they were married fictionally on TV, they still slept in separate beds because society did not want to give the viewpoint of people that were not married sleeping in the same bed. They had principles and values back then.
Even the ones who were married, like Lucille Ball.
Yeah, I mean, and even though they had principle and values on television, but were still, racist and things like that off television, they still had some principles. Now it's like you don't have those kind of same guidance and principles when you're in a position. It's like, I'm in a position of a credit manager. I can't do wrong with financial things and credit, and try to do things that will benefit me. As you saw just recently, your president is pulling all these tariffs out there, and then he's telling some people this is a good time to buy, which is that's inner trading information that he's providing for people so they can go out there and buy things, and so we don't have those kind of principles anymore, and it's funny, we don't have those principles, and this principal didn't follow the principles, and the teacher did not, she didn't follow the things that she was supposed to do. So I'll let Kenny tell us when she's there on connected to us. But it's a sad thing when you see something like that.
It really is, though, because it's like I never heard of a story like that. I'm sure they're not the first, but I just never heard of one that you have the teacher and the principal doing this in cahoots of. And I think their thought was that we're putting the kids in a safe haven place. If they, you know how some people say, "Well, I'd rather for my kids to be in my house if they want to do something than to be out." No, no. I'd rather for the kids to have not been with the authority of people like them and done that, because now you're looking at them like, you teach my kids. This is what's going on with this.
Well, the society we live in now is I rather than that. Instead of but back in the day when we was born, it was you better not do.
Right, you ain't had no choice.
It wasn't no choice. I'd rather than them do it here than out. No, don't do it
Yeah.
because I said so.
Right, don't question me.
And that was it. You know, be in the house before the lights go off.
Yeah.
You know, those things you had to follow because your parents gave you a guideline of what you're supposed to do. Did she say if she got it or not? And so those are the things you have to do. We're trying to wait to our guest to come on. We sent her the link, and hopefully she'll be able to get on soon. Carrie Young McWilliams is going to be our guest, but we're having some issues with getting the link to her, and so she can get on the air. But I mean, it's a shame when something like that happens. But the society we live in. I mean, I just saw another situation where, again, a 30-year-old teacher was caught having sexual relationships with a 15-year-old kid. And the only way that happened was the mother happened to see the boy's phone and noticed, a conversation he was having with someone that happened to be the teacher. And it's like, where do we get the idea that this is acceptable, huh?
So this is a female.
Yeah.
Wow.
This has happened. I mean, it's been happening a lot with females as well too. It's unfortunate. You when you think about it, the first thing you think is, it's got to be a man with a younger girl. But in some of these cases you're starting to see now is that the women are doing the same thing, and it's all about maybe some control, but also mentally some, it might be mental abuse, physical abuse that they've received before. And this is more of a safe comfort zone for them to have something control over someone younger, that now I'm controlling the scenario instead of being controlled by a scenario. And, your first thing we want to think of is, she's disgusting. This is how could she do this? But I tend to want to look at also the mental side of what causes a person to go into a situation that they know that is not acceptable in today's society, which today's society acceptability can change as soon as the wind blows. I mean, because we've accepted a lot of things now that we didn't accept 20, 30 years ago. But what causes, what mentally has happened with the individual to have them turn to a scenario that they know that is not the norm of what we have in this society? And so, I want to look at that and say, did she go through some kind of a, physical or mental abuse that caused this, her to do that? You want to look for other scenarios that may have caused that, because the Bible tells us we all sin and fall short of the glory of God. We cannot sit there and be judgmental of this sin and say this sin is acceptable. We have to look at, as Christians, basically as Christians, we have to look at all sin as something that we need to learn to forgive and understand why someone fell into that sinful category. The first thing we want to do is we want to, rebuke and beat down and talk against. But as a child of God, the first thing we should do is look for ways to forgive and understand. and it just doesn't seem like that happens a lot. Any word from her yet?
Still.
Okay, so I'm assuming she hasn't got on there yet because Kenny hasn't told us anything. I'm hoping that I did send you something that can get you there, because I'm on here, going to it as well on my phone. I think it says preparing the meeting, invalid ID. Maybe that's why. Why would I have an invalid ID? Let me see something. Talk for a second.
Talk for speak. Okay, yeah. So, do you want me to go to another story?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we have another one. A mother accused of going to mental illness. We going further, what? West now? North, south, east, west. Los Angeles here. Mother accused of drowning 7-year-old daughter. Her fiance, this story kind of tickled me. Go from fiance to him saying his wife, she was always sweet, and whenever she had these episodes, she would go, and be secluded. She didn't never harm her daughter, or her and him never got into an argument. But this time, she snapped because what was leading up to it says she was so worried about being deported. But it still give you no excuse to kill your child. She drowned her daughter. The neighbors heard screaming. And when the cops got there, the daughter was already dead. And that's just, it's heartbreaking to hear that. You could hear the little girl saying, "Mommy, no, Mommy, stop." And it's like, you drowned her, you killed her because you are afraid to be deported. It doesn't link together. But the fiance who didn't want his face shown during the interview or didn't want his name to be called out said she was an excellent mom. What made her snap? The world is living in fear daily, but to kill your child is unacceptable. And then, the quickest thing everybody would say is, they have mental issues. Okay, well, she should make sure you get her some help. But the thing is, that's the go-to thing to get a lesser sentence to rape me from my child. But you separated you and your child anyway. So that's a story, like I said, going on in Los Angeles.
I can't seem to forward that thing on your phone.
This one. Right?
Yeah, but
that's a story.
But how are you forwarding it?
You have to hold it and hit the
well,
3 dots and do whatever.
Something about her phone is just crazy. But send it over to Carrie and we'll do that.
Okay.
And so you were talking about, as I wasn't paying attention, I apologize. Everybody, we're having a little difficulty sending over the link to our guest who's supposed to be on the air with us. So hopefully she'll be able to get that link. You was talking about a little girl.
A mother that killed her 7-year-old daughter by drowning her, and her excuse was that she was afraid to be deported.
The mother was afraid to be deported, so she drowned the daughter.
That makes sense. But the fiance / husband says that she had some mental issues, and whenever she went through the episodes, she never harmed him or her daughter. She just went secluded into a room and waited till she came, calmed down.
Yeah, and that's, again, we're talking about situation where mental illness is a part of it. We used to, talk about, those powerful weapons, that Satan has, the principalities in the air, and it's not saying that it's not. I'm not saying it's not true, but it's sad. I think the thing that hurts me the most when I hear a story like this is that a little girl died, and the mother was afraid of being deported, so she killed the child. It's hard for you to fathom or understand scenarios about like that, but there are weapons that are formed against us. But in Christ Jesus, by faith, we've learned that they shall not prosper. But there are times when weapons will form against those who are unbelievers, or even those who of little faith. and we have to, just be prayerful. I think that, really, like I said it before, I don't say I think that, but what hurts me the most is hearing that the young lady, the girl, the 7-year-old, um, was killed because of the thought process of her mother. And, most people are going to be angry at her and stuff like that. And it's hard to understand. Sometimes things that happen in this world and we want to say, God, why? But, we are given free will. And, guys, I can't explain. I can't explain that. It's painful. And we can't run away from the pain of the scenario because you feel for the little girl, the father, and those who were around her as well. We're gonna go on right now to some more music as we wait for our guests. We're doing some music from Smokey Norval, and I think this time it might be. We're going to be playing the song Still Say Thank You by Smokey Norval. We're going to let that music play. We're going to do a little bit talking again to those who are on Facebook and YouTube with a couple of stories. And then hopefully by the time that we get back, we'll have our guests there with us. And if not, then we'll just have to bring her back next Tuesday. So we'll see how this is going to go. So listen up to this music and we'll be right back. So, you got any more stories over there as we wait for Carrie? Because I think that second link that I sent her should work because it was going to let me in.
Keep on talking, baby.
Keep on talking, baby.
That's a song.
It's called Keep on Trucking.
Oh, well, okay, we're going to truck on and we're going to go wherever Denmark is in the country. American college student arrested in Denmark speaks out. We had done nothing wrong. Young guy named Owen Ray and his good friend, who they're not giving a name, was in Denmark, and they decided to take an Uber. And what they did, they paid for it, and they put in the wrong address. They didn't know it was the right address, and when they the wrong address, when they get to that destination, they was like, this is not where we're supposed to be at. And so I guess they got out, and the Uber driver said, well, you didn't pay me. And he said they did. I'm not sure how the Uber go, you pay them before or after or whatever. But for some reason, Denmark, they protect their Uber drivers. That they do. They arrested these poor little boys, kept them in jail for 10 days. His mother had to fly to Denmark. He was just saying, I just want to be home by Easter. And it's so sad. It's like, what happened that this man, the Uber driver, he gets out his car and chased them down. And the guy, I guess they didn't know that they didn't pay him, or they did. The Uber driver went off and reported them. And of course, that's a fine. You're going to jail. I'm like, wow. And I'm sure there's been a lot of people here, babe, that did that and probably didn't pay nobody. But I'm like, 10 days in jail? That's a lot.
To me, there's more to this story than meets the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we're going to, stand up for the Americans. And Denmark is a country. You said somewhere in the country. Denmark is a country.
When he said, I'm going to call 10 guys.
No, but you said...
the guy said, I'm going to call 10 guys. They get 10 days.
No, I'm just saying Denmark is a country.
It sure
you said
is.
Somewhere in the country.
Out of the country.
Yeah. And so I think there's going to be a little bit more about that. And in most Ubers, if you've ever taken an Uber, they don't, you don't get a chance, or most people don't change where they're going to go, because you're being charged based on where you said you was going to go, and so they that's where their charge is. And so I don't think it's necessarily a egregious thing to happen by changing it, because then you can add more charges to it, because most of the time it's credit card. I don't know how they do it in Denmark. Was it cash or something like that? But it just seems like there's more to the story than what the Americans are saying about it, because they took his passport from him, and they were in jail for 10 days, but they're out and still don't have their passport, and so this could be a situation where. Um, um, this is Denmark and places are getting back at Americans because of the tariffs of Trump.
Right.
Who knows?
You never
But there
know
seems
when you
like there's a
travel.
little bit more to the story than what we're hearing right now. Of course, we're hearing, "Oh, we're so sad for these Americans that are being, so unfairly treated." I just think there's going to be more to the story than what they are sharing, because these boys are probably doing something mischievous and thought that they can get away with it because they're Americans, and the authorities out there in Denmark said, no.
And most countries they don't like Americans now. I hate to say it, guilty by unfortunately bad association. Got to be careful when you're traveling abroad. Do what you need to do. And I got a couple of friends that are traveling abroad in the near future, and it's like, have your stuff in order. Make sure you stay close, because y'all just picking up people on, as they say, Trump picking up people that's walking that's not white and arresting them. It's like, oh God. So be careful, people. Just be careful.
We still seem to be having some issues with
It's
Carrie
not
getting
like
on.
her.
I mean, it may just be something that with the link or something like that she's having a problem with, because we didn't send her the link beforehand. She should be able to get on that link. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but I think we may have to postpone her visit until next week, and it gives me a little bit more time to talk about the relationship letter, and then go to For Better or Worse, because I want to kind of focus on that. So get your relationship letter ready when we come back on the air. For those of you who are listening to us on Facebook and YouTube, make sure you watch the JD Morning Show each Wednesday between the hours of 6 and 8 a.m. only on SOAR Radio. Justin, Kenny, and the gang will be talking about some amazing topics as well. And you will hear this repeated announcement once we get back on air on SOAR Radio. We appreciate you all listening to us live, or you're looking at a re-recording of it. We appreciate you doing that. We pray that you are learning something or receiving something, a blessing somehow from what we are sharing. We do Christian Real because we want to be real Christians, and we want to be able to share, real life situations on the air, and so and let you know that, as the Bible says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. We talk about those weapons that come against you, and what you need to do, and to how you live your life as a Christian. And so we appreciate you listening, and we hope that you will share this with someone, but just clip it, do it this way, show them a 15-minute clip here and there, and let them know that Let's Stay Together Talk Show is on the air for right now between the hours of 7 and 9 p.m. on Tuesdays Central Time, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time on Tuesdays. And that is somewhat tentatively, because I am thinking about making some changes to how we broadcast our show. So pray with me as I pray. We got about maybe 20 seconds before. You got anything you could say in 20 seconds?
No, but no.
20 seconds is like one word for you. No. So stay with us, Facebook, YouTube, as we get back to our SOAR Radio family, and we talk with all of you. All right, everybody, welcome back to Let's Stay Together Talk Show. Your host, Reverend Rick McCain, along with my baby, my girl, my boo. Still seems like we're having some issues with bringing Carrie on the show today, so I'm going to tell Brenda to let her know that we're going to bring her back next Tuesday, and we'll make sure we have the link to her to where she is able to get onto the show. So we're going to go to our relationship letter, because what I want to do with the show, because We do get some amazing relationship letters, and I think sometimes we rush through them. We do give our advice on there, but I want to kind of dissect it a little bit more instead of just rushing it through. Because sometimes we'll do it at 8:52, and we've got like a few minutes before we get into it. And it's almost like it's rushing, and I don't want to do that. So we're gonna bring the relationship letter on now, and then from there we can talk about making marriage work. What is that thing called now? What is it? Why did I get married? Old title, making marriage work. And so, babe, share the relationship letter with us.
Dear LSGT, my fiance mother seems to loathe me. Let me be clear, I would never come between my fiance and his mother. However, at any given time, she feels the need to talk badly about me to their family members and friends in front of me, and the worst part is he doesn't do anything to stand up for me. I want to tell him either her or me. LSTT, is this a sign to what's to come in the future? Sincerely, I'm losing my patience.
I'm going to let you go first this time. I always seem like I say something. I want to see the Betty Shabazz answer to this.
Girl, yes, it's a big red flag. What you're seeing now is probably going to be what you're going to see in your marriage. Now, it's nothing wrong. I'm not even going to say he's a mama's boy. It's nothing wrong with a son loving his mother. You want that. Because they used to say when you see a man caring and doting for his mother, that's how he would treat his fiance or wife. In this case, it's a little different, but it's how far do you want to go in this relationship? You already fiance, got the ring on your finger, but when you see your fiance disrespecting you, that hurts more than the mother doing that, because this is somebody you're about to be bound to, and it's like, you okay with your mother talking about me like that, degrading me in front of people, and you don't say anything out of respect for her and not me. So I just want to say, pray on this hard, because these are family ties that you're about to jump into his family, and he's showing you exactly how they roll. You're not as important as you thought you were, and like I said, you don't want to get in between the dynamics of a mother and a son. You just don't. You go back, you watch, you pray, you suggest gently of what you think your fiance might need to hear without pushing the wrong buttons, because I guarantee you say something out of pocket and become a Betty Shabazz number 2 on him about his mother, that ring will be off your finger and he will be gone, because he's showing you better than he telling you where his dedication lies.
So, I mean, I know you said that the mother is very disrespectful to her. Did you also say that he's very disrespectful to her?
Yeah, because he's not defending her.
Okay, so that doesn't necessarily mean he's being disrespectful. He's not respecting her by, standing up. I wanted to dissect this a little bit more, because you made the statement that this is my fiance, which means that you've went through a period of dating with this individual before you made the decision to accept his proposal to become his wife. So that makes me wonder if you're talking about now in this relationship letter that the mother is being disrespectful and the son is not standing up for you, that you've known that this pattern of abuse has been there for a while. You didn't say anything about this is something new. This is a pattern that the mother has had about you for a while, and yet you still accepted the invitation to become his wife. So I'm saying that to basically say there has to be some love that is superseding the pain and the anguish that you're having from the relationship that you're having with your mother, his mother, and you're having. So this is something that has happened for a while, and you have endured it and accepted it for the love of that individual. I totally do understand that he should be standing up for you, but to make the statement, it's going to be my mother, me or your mother, is making him make a choice that he shouldn't have to make. You should have at one point made the decision that you would not accept the invitation to be his wife if this was going to be an ongoing scenario. You've now made a proverbial decision because you're about to get married to put your foot down when your foot never should have been up. You should have made this stance a long time ago. So I'm putting some responsibility back on you. You know, I think she said, what was the end of it? She said, what was the end of the thing?
I'm losing my patience.
You're losing your patience. And so you had some patience over something that you should have never had any patience with in the first place. Because you should never allow someone to disrespect you, talk down to you in the first place. That's a relationship that you should have established between you and the mother, not have the son jump into that relationship as well. And Brenda was kind of rolling her eyes a little bit, but that's a relationship you should have had with the mother, and that I'm not going to accept that from you. Now, the son is obviously has not stepped in because of his love for his mother, his fear for his mother, his lack of courage to speak out. There's all kinds of gambits of things that could have caused this scenario, Brenda. But again, I'm looking at you and saying, if this was something that happened before, why wait to this time to make a decision to say, you need to speak up for me because I'm going to be your wife? You should have had that before. Now, you may have, but what I'm saying is, why is it now? So I'm going to let you respond a little bit to that, because I'm going to get back to the boyfriend, the fiance, who's not standing up for his woman.
A couple of things with this letter. As a woman, she, in the beginning, most women, they look at how their boyfriend, fiance, or husband treats their mom. That's a given. They always have that eye out on that. And if he's treating them well, it's like, okay, he probably did treat her well. And it's like, I'm going to receive all of that. And now, because you can't unsee what has been done in public, how he's allowing his mother to treat me this way.
But it doesn't mean that he's still not going to give him the same love and treatment that she's seen that he's given to a mother. He's just not defending her. I'm not saying this is right, but he's not defending her. So you can't equate those two together, because you know, he may have never done this with any girlfriends. He still may have that same love and adoration for you that he's given to his mother. He just doesn't have the strength and the courage. He's the cowardly lion in this, in the Wizard of Oz. He doesn't have the ability to do that. And then you got to also look at the fact: has he shown an exhibit of not standing up for you with other people? You know, if some man comes to you, will he not stand up for that? I mean, there's a lot of things you can look at, but I don't want you to say, because I give this to your mama, I was expecting that from you. He could still give that. The problem is that he's not standing up against his mother, and why is he not doing that is so paramount.
And then some women, another scenario of the woman, they'll see all of that. Now, he might be a brother who got the great package of everything, looks and the money, and she's like, I'm going to hold on to it. You never know. The mama might see something that ain't right.
Yeah.
Or it can be with the fiance, the woman. She's like, well, once I get him, I'm going to change him. I don't have to worry about that. Some women do that. The minute the ring come on and they marry, as a married now, all the other stuff stop with the other family. We get that. That's how we get that. That's how some things happen. But as a woman, unfortunately, when we are dating someone and in love with someone, we're looking at, okay, he treats his mother better than he treats me. Or he treats his mom so well, I'm sure he's going to be a good husband to me. Leslie, wait a minute. He's treating his mama really well, and this is so disrespectful. How you going to let her talk about me in front of me and not say anything? And like as Rick said, yeah, maybe he needs to take that. She needs to take that up with her future in-laws. But sometimes whomever the situation is abiding to, in this case it's the guy with his mom, you need to check that first. Hey, this is my woman, my girlfriend, my fiance. Please do not speak to her in terms of that. Or, this is my husband, my boyfriend, my fiance. I'm not cool with y'all talking to him like that. That's not right.
I'm going to agree and disagree with you, because he should check her. I don't want to say check her. He should say something about it. But I still have to go back to the woman and say, this is your fiance, so there's been a pattern of this abuse that has happened for a while. I know, for a while, and so I feel that there should have been a time during that relationship of boyfriend and girlfriend to engage, that this should have been brought up before. Now we don't know if she brought it up or not, but it should have been something that you could have went to the mother and said, hey, we got to work something out, because I'm going to be his wife soon. And so I'm still saying, if this was a pattern of abuse that you've been receiving from girlfriend to being engaged to him, and there's nothing been said about it before, why would you bring it up now in this pivotal situation? Again, I don't know all the information, but it should have been something that should have been dealt with before. Now, let me get back to the boyfriend, because we do have the guest on there. She's going to come on in a few minutes. You should show the responsibility. The Bible says that a husband should to love his wife as God loves the church unconditionally. That unconditional love means protection. I do remember one time my mom called Brenda a heifer, and I checked her quick. I'm like, don't call her that. Well, don't do that, because that's going to be my wife. I don't want her to be spoken to that way. Now, my mama got bent out of shape, but she had to respect the idea that you're talking about someone who is going to be my wife, my godly wife, and you cannot start this off with any kind of disrespect to the person who's going to be living with me for the rest of my life. And so I did say something to her about that. And as a man, you are supposed to be your protector for your wife. And if someone speaks ill against her, you need to step up and say, hey, this can't happen like this. You're not going to be able to do this. And then reaffirm to your mother that no matter how you feel about her, she's going to be my wife. And so you're going to have to make the decision on how you are going to deal with our relationship, not just me, because now the two have become one. And so how you deal with me is how you deal with her. So if you're going to deal with her negatively, then that means you're dealing with me negatively. And so you need to establish that with your mother. Personally, I believe that's something you should do without your fiance, because you need to get the understanding of that. Now, it sounds good that your fiance is there and she hears it. You know, that sounds good to most people, but I think the establishment should be, Mom, we need to talk, because what you did was wrong, and I want to speak to you personally about that. And then look for your mother to possibly give us apology, or why your mother and daughter, your wife, your fiance are together. Say, hey, I just want to let you know, I did speak to my mother about this. We had a discussion about it. I told her how I didn't feel about it. It's great if you can do it together with each other. But the only thing I don't want is a situation where it comes to powder cake, because it starts becoming an argument instead of a loving discussion with your mother, from the son saying, hey, I feel that what you did was wrong, and I feel that you owe my future wife an apology. And as my mother, who I love, that I respect, I know you understand that this is something you should do to the woman that's going to become my wife, and see how that works first. Now, if it doesn't, let's get ready to rumble. No, I'm joking.
And I hope, because I told her we were just gonna read her letter today. Sincerely, I'm losing my patience. I hope you tuned in to hear this.
And one last thing, there's nothing wrong with coming together as a unified front to discuss this with her. I mean, the way it sounds like Mama's going to have an attitude about it, but what you do is you set the framework of how things should be done. I still like the son coming to the mama and say, hey, we need to talk, and then you all get back together. But it's nothing wrong with a unified front to saying, hey, this is wrong. But the ultimate thing is, future husband, you should stand up for your wife.
Yes, you should.
Hey, speaking of standing up, we do have our guest that's going to be on the show. Carrie Young McWilliams is going to be coming on. So the Rockford Gold is going to bring her on in a second so we can talk to her. And we are glad that we was finally able to get a connection with her onto the show. And she's coming up here now. Hey, family. So she's on here with us now. And I'm going to turn it over to my baby, my girl, my boo, who's going to do the introductions, read off the things, and hopefully I can get in a word edgewise with these two, because once they start talking, brother ain't got no help.
Well, I'm about to start off. First of all, I like your hair and your glasses. Okay. Now I'm about to be professional since we talking about something professional. We have Dr. Carrie Young McWilliams with us again, and I'm loving this. Our topic today is Triumph in the Trenches, Volume 2. A green book, baby, a green book for Black professionals. So I know, girl, I know you're about to bring it. So great topic. I'm sure this is a great book. I was doing some reading on it. Help us to understand the corporate world and how we have to have a green book
and
to travel and work.
This is from the C-suite to the classroom. Myself and my fellow co-authors took the time to put volume 2 together. And just to give you a history of how we came about with this title, The Green Book. For those of you who know what the Green Book is, back in the day when people of color, Black people, would travel, because we would travel, we needed a green book to let us know where we could stay, where we could eat, and where we could gas up. And so we took that green book with us, and it gave us directions so that we could navigate safely in the States on road trips. And just, not be in sundown towns and different things like that, just for our own safety.
You're right.
So we thought there needs to be a green book for Black professionals. And it's not just for Black people, white people. If you're interested in being a co-conspirator or an ally, this you need to know about too. Stop doing some things in the professional settings. So I will talk about my section in the book. It is really, really, really about a time where I had to find out who I was as a person. I'm telling you, when I was first of all, coming out of college, I was like, I am going to law school because I love to debate and I love to talk. So I'm just going to go to law school. Whatever. The Lord brought me to Connecticut with my family because my husband was active duty. And we ended up in Connecticut, of all places. And I met a sorority sister, Miss Shirley Gillis. I'll never forget her. And she said, you need to be a teacher. Actually, it was her principal, because I came in to help her in her little kindergarten classroom waiting for law school to start the following semester. She had to go out. So I ended up having to take over this class and of these little people. And he came in and he was like, oh my God, you're a natural. So not only did these people want me to go to school to become an educator, they went out and found me money so I could do it for free. I could go back to school for free, to graduate school. who's gonna give up free money? So then
I'm sorry.
you know how we do. We get like, okay, Lord, I'm a praying person too. I've been baptized since I was 7, and I've been going to church forever.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, Lord, I got you. I got you. You want me to do this little side gig to help me pay for law school? Now he didn't say anything like that. That's just me talking. So I get into the education things, and people see all this potential, and I like it, and it's very easy for me because when you're walking in his will and you're really using your talent and gifts for what he wants you to use it for, it is easy.
Amen.
And it was easy to do, but then there were always obstacles. Obstacles in how I taught my students, obstacles in how can you relate to the children and the parents this way and I can't? And so quickly I advanced through the dean of discipline, which, that'd be the person that when a kid is asked to leave class, they would have to come and see me.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was pretty quick. I stayed 10 years in the classroom, and then even before that, I was a department chair. So I moved rapidly. But there was the proverbial glass ceiling. You can do this much, but you can't run the whole building. This was after I got all the, credentials and doctorate and, second master's degree in administration, all this education I had right under my wing. And I was like, I got this. Forget law school. I'm going to do this now because this is my gift. So I'm just ready, right? Start putting in the little applications, going on interviews, and somehow I could never, ever break in that club. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking around, I'm like, now, Lord, you said do this. I'm doing this. And you made a way for all this other stuff to happen. So I don't really understand why I'm not, moving on to this next role, because these other people you put in the role, I'm definitely out credentialing them and I know how to do the job. I've been doing the job. But for whatever reason, he would not allow me to advance. And sometimes we have to step back and realize that our master plan is not the master's plan.
I like that.
And I'm going to tell you, it came to a point where I actually walked into the building. This one superintendent, he said to me, he said, I know I just put this young person happened to have been in high school, who was now going to run outbid me for the job. They were in high school when I was teaching.
Okay.
And because of politics and the unwritten rule of white supremacy, this person got the job. Well, this particular superintendent wanted me to teach that person everything I knew. No compensation. You want me to mentor somebody in a job where you wouldn't let me have the job. And then he had the nerve to say this: you will never have that type of position in this community.
Oh, wow. Just said it, huh?
It said it, no consequence. And so at this time, I'm worn. I'm like, Lord, what do you want me to do? This is crazy. I'm here for the kids. I'm here for the community. I love my students. I love the parents. And one day I just had to go in. It was in September. We had just come back to school, and I just had to pack up my office and I left. And I went home. My husband was deployed at the time, and my mother was there with my children. And she said, "Why are you here?" I said, "You know what? I walked out today." She said, "Are you going back tomorrow?" I said, "Probably not." And I didn't. I did not go back. Fast forward, I got an opportunity and was recruited. I wanted to do a principalship. What I really wanted to do was turn around a quote unquote failing school, because most of those schools are populated by children who look like me. And I wanted to do that. That was in my heart, in my core. And so I was recruited to go to the Delta in Mississippi, in Greenville, Mississippi. I don't know how the Lord gave me the strength to do it, but I gave guardianship to my mother for my 2 girls because my husband was deployed and I would be moving to Mississippi to take a 2-year contract. And I look back at it now, and during the time, I don't know how I had the strength. It was a peace that was surreal. I never worried about my home. I never worried about my children. And all I can think of is the story of Abraham when the Lord said, pick up all your stuff and let's go. So that's what I did. He didn't tell me to bring my children. I could have. He didn't tell me to move my household. I could have. He didn't tell me to do any of that. He said, you go. And I did. And while I fought that glass ceiling of politics with white people in New England, when I returned to Mississippi, my roots, where I'm from, my home state, not my hometown, but my home state, I just knew, man, I'm gonna be able to do some stuff. So I interviewed for this transformational principalship, and they stopped the interview midway, and I was like, oh, really? Not again. And the superintendent brings me over to the side. He said, I don't want you at the principal level. I need you in my cabinet. And I was like, huh? How we leap all the way over? I'm just trying to get this little piece of cheese. You're trying to get the whole block. So lo and behold, I interview and I get appointed to his cabinet and approved by the board. So I move. And my title was Director of Professional Learning, Data and Statistics and Testing. So I was over all the testing for the district, all the professional development for the leaders, and all the data analysis. Lo and behold, let's fast forward, it was a 2-year contract. Within my first year, I found so much malfeasance and so much, it became a war of integrity at this point. Because now I'm like, Lord, you moved me here. I took a pay cut because Lord knows they're not paying in Mississippi Delta what they're paying in Connecticut. And I find that people who look like me were doing things to hurt children that look like us because the district was 99% Black. It's still segregated, much so in Greenville. That's where Emmett Till allegedly said something inappropriate to a white woman and was killed. This is the town I'm working in. And today is very much segregated. The public school is mostly Black and the private and parochial school are white, unless you get a scholarship to play football or something. So I get and I find that money is not being spent on students, but being spent on people. For instance, this is just one instance, an invoice for choir robes. Our high school didn't have a choir.
Girl, you better stop.
Then I flipped the page, another invoice for the choir robes to be monogrammed. And so I won't say the church, but the church's name is on there. So now you know it's not the school district. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So the poorer the district is, the more, Mississippi, first of all, 51% of its income, the way it functions, they come from the federal government. So that money goes to the state, and then the state then allocates to the poorer sections versus based on an ERG, economic reference groups. So, the Mississippi Delta is very poor. So they get a lot of federal funding, but the federal funding is not for you to buy choir robes. The federal funding is to go to the students.
Especially when you don't have a choir.
Right. Some things were just red flags, but I could go on and on. That's a book in itself. But the overarching thing that I learned about myself is that sometimes the Lord sends you in a place and you might think it's for one thing and it's for something totally different. Because when I left that place, the very superintendent who recruited me to come there ended up being sentenced to 70 months in federal prison in Alabama and lost everything. I kept in touch with him. He had he harbored no hard feelings because I did what he hired me to do. But I don't think he knew that he was going to end up paying the price he had to pay. And sometimes the Lord just puts you in a space because he knows what he's prepared you to do. And I was like, Lord, you brought me all the way down here to hot Mississippi. And I only stayed a year. But the reason I knew that was for me to do is because I was like, well, now I left this position in Connecticut, can't go back there. Now what am I going to do? Put this man in jail? Can't stay here because, now the locals are all upset because the money left the district and it went far and wide in the community. So when I say things I had an interview with the FBI. So things got really heated.
Right.
So lo and behold, my mother says, well, these people from Rhode Island have been calling, and you have some mail here. So lo and behold, at the time we had President Barack Obama in office, and he had something called a Race to the Top grant, and Rhode Island was one of the first states to get that grant. I was then hired to be a transformational leader, which is what I wanted to do in the beginning, in Rhode Island. So I walked out of that season right into the other season. And that teaches you something where I want people to understand that sometimes your best laid plan is not the best plan. You may have to zig and zag to get where you need to go because there's work that you've been prepared to do in the master's overall plan. And it's not for us to know. If I had known that the Lord was going to put me there, and if he had said to me, now you're going to go down here and you're going to do this, and this person is going to go to jail and people are going to be putting hits out on you, do you think I would have went?
Right.
Nope.
No. If I would have thought, well, you're going to miss your child's this and your child is going to be missing you and they're going to be crying in there now and they want their money. Do you think I would have went? Absolutely not. So he puts us in that place. But the thing about it is you have to be willing to trust. And if you don't trust, you're not going to have those things accessible to you.
Right.
And I think sometimes we find it hard. Everybody's like, oh, you want to leave religion out of the workplace. But look, if you are the church and you're walking into the C-suite, the church is in the C-suite. You have to take your belief and your foundation with you.
Amen.
You can't check that at the door. And sometimes that's having that Esther spirit. And see, the reason I can rattle off all these things because I've been going to church since in utero. So I know what it means when you have to walk in there and say, I had to walk into the superintendent's office and say, you know what, when I send this report, you're probably not going to have a job and you are going to be arrested. And just like Esther walked into she didn't know. She knew what the consequence was for, talking out of turn.
Right.
My consequence could have been very the same. I was there alone, not with my family. I didn't know what anybody was going to do. But I had that courage that God had given me because he was leading me. It wasn't me doing it. Had I been doing it, things would have been totally different. It would have been totally different. And it would have probably been, I know it would have probably been a totally different outcome.
Yeah.
And while I was
in comfort zone.
Yeah. We were talking about that a little bit earlier about, you have to, when you're trying to reaching God-sized goals, you have to step out of your comfort zone and trust God for what his plans are and for your life. And sometimes stepping out of that comfort zone makes people uncomfortable because they're not in control.
Right.
So basically what you're saying is that you were not in control. I'm going to ask you to pick up the book again for a second because you made a statement about that as triumph on
in the
trenches. And so you said it's the green book. So now, thank you, Kenny. That the green book that we talked about a little bit more was about Black people and the places they could go and stuff like that. But all these places that these black people went to,
Mm-hmm.
that was just for black people.
Yes.
They white people, you know, wasn't going there because black people were going there because only black people could go there. White people, you know, they couldn't go to white places, they only get to black places. So Triumph in the Trenches, this green book, how does that help black people now? It's not saying that this is where black people can go with black people. How is that translating now to a? Is it different?
It's different. And I just want to say, you pictured volume 1, and the reason you can tell the difference between volume 1 and volume 2 is volume 2 has the 2 gold balloons, and volume 1 has 1 gold balloon.
Okay.
So there's a difference between the two. However, both of them are guidebooks. But
So are they guidebooks for blacks to be working with blacks only?
No, it's
Okay.
guidebook for how blacks are to navigate spaces in the workplace.
Right.
And those are white spaces. Because
Right.
even though we were in Green Book, which my father's side of the family was featured in the 2nd edition, I believe, of the Green Book,
Mm-hmm.
E.F. Young Hotel in Meridian, Mississippi, which has since been demolished. But that was one of the places that black people could go when traveling in the South.
Right.
So when you have that place, those people may have been going to play for white audiences somewhere.
True. And that's what I wanted people to understand.
But you had to have, but you
Yeah.
have to be able to go somewhere, get your nourishment, know how to navigate, and
Right.
who's friend and who's foe. And you don't need to buy those lessons. In other words, if I was coming from Detroit and I had to go in what they call the Chitlin circuit, I needed to know where I needed to be, but I didn't need to do it by chance. I needed to learn and know that from people who had already been there before to say, this is a safe place to go.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? So in Triumph in the Trenches, what we're trying to do is we give strategies, and there are frameworks within this text. I just didn't give all of my information away. But there are strategies and frameworks in this test of what type of work do you need to do in order to be successful in navigating these different spaces. Because most of the spaces that we are in are not predominantly white spaces that we're working in. Okay, most of them are white spaces, and we are the minority. And that's just by race, or you're working, in my case, in Mississippi, which was a black space, race-wise, but you had people working with a white supremacist mindset.
Okay. Yeah.
You have to unlearn and detox what you've been taught, because you've been taught in a white system. And as that saying goes, the oppressor is not teaching you how to dismantle his system. He's teaching you how to keep it in place.
Yeah.
So the people I was working with who were doing damage, and it had been years and years of cover up. It just didn't start with that superintendent. It had been years of cover up.
Right.
They were go ahead.
Basically, they were just learning how to do the same wrong that the white race was doing, and it was just as detrimental to the community because you had learned. The Bible says, "Train up a child the way it should go." They were learning wrong, so they did wrong.
Absolutely.
And it hurts more when it comes from us, on us. I don't like when people say, well, it should hurt more when the other written all it, because we've been in the struggle of life being African Americans forever. So when we turn against each other, it's like, really? So like you said, you came to Mississippi with something totally different than mine. And
Right.
you're honest, you're godly, and God-fearing. It's like, okay, you hired me for this position, but I don't think that boss wanted you to rat on them like that, probably. But now it's like, hey, I'm only doing the job that I was given to do.
So I want to say this: she wasn't ratting on him; she was doing the godly thing to
Right.
do, and that puts you in the trenches. And how do you triumph over that? I'm quite sure he did not expect,
Check
which
that,
was
see?
which was
Ah.
his mistake. It was almost like coming into the Trump administration expecting you to do things the way Trump wanted you to do, but yet you did the right thing, which ultimately ran to him. And maybe he knew that was going to happen ultimately, or he didn't. Maybe he didn't even realize that he was at fault at some of these things. But the fact of the matter is that it's how you triumph in those trenches, in those difficult situations. What are you going to do? How are you going to do things? And your goal was there to help the community, and then you find out that they're hurting the community even worse than white society has hurt community themselves. And let me just say this: Mama would just say, "You should know better."
Right. And I was just, and then the people, Black people, they turned on me.
Yeah.
Of course
yeah.
they
So I
did,
needed to
yeah.
get out of town quick.
Mhm.
So it was like, I can't believe you came down here and opened your mouth. Because
Mhm.
one thing my parents instilled in me, even though they got divorced when I was 7, but they instilled this in me. You have one reputation. It takes you a lifetime to build it, but it only takes a single moment to lose.
Yep.
Yeah.
To tear it down.
Yeah.
So if you don't have integrity, I may have been disliked. I may never be welcome back to that town again. But I know my motto is always leave a place better than I found it. It may not have been better for the people who were using the school system.
Right.
It rich. It may have not been, good for them, but you know who it was good for? It was for the child who got the money and the resources that they were supposed to be
Right.
getting.
But I'm looking
And
at
the resale on eBay of the robes that were never used.
Those robes went to the church. I
Went to the church. Ain't that something? The church gets the robes that's supposed to be going. There's supposed to be money spent for the school. So that was somebody. This is the bad thing. There was somebody there that was a Christian who made the decision. We're gonna take the money from the school to give it to the church. And that's
Don't
a
worry
shame.
about it. I know somewhere we can get the money.
Yeah, we get we get the. Don't worry, we can have it because we've been doing that before. And that's the thing about it. I mean, it worked for a while. So people said, if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. But it was broke.
Right,
It was
it
just
was
working.
broken.
It was just working for a few people who were taking advantage of a system that was already negatively affecting people in a way that they were not supposed to be receiving money that others should have received.
Okay.
Here's
I
the thing.
guess
That
Dr.
school
Carey.
district was in receivership, which means that the state of Mississippi had a representative that come down to look over their books, and they had to sign off things. So they were
They were in cahoots.
soon after he left, meaning the superintendent, the state superintendent resigned.
You
Because-
know what?
Because he knew he was in cahoots and doing wrong too.
Yeah.
Better to resign than get fired.
There you go.
Okay. I'm burning over here. I
know.
gotta
You-
say
Okay.
this. When I interviewed you, it was a title under your name that I said, what is disruptive? What? That was your thing. And I said, well, she got that on here. I'm going to put it on there. Now I get it. You turned
Ding.
Mississippi upside down. You came and disrupted the whole system of what they was used to having. And then the thing to get me is before that, you said, why can't I break through this glass ceiling? Why aren't they allowing me? To me, it's God. I'm about to put her in a position and see how well and honest and true she's going to do with this because I got a blessing waiting for
The
her.
other side.
On the
Exactly.
other side, now you done made the whole picture. I'm gonna have to go back and read your interview, girl.
That sounds real good, but let me just say this.
Yeah.
I think New England just figured out we ain't gonna let her disrupt us like that, so she ain't gonna never be in this position
But
because
here,
there's a lot
Right,
of
we
negative
gonna have her
things
come
going
back with
here,
us.
too.
oh, now look, as they say, let's run. Like my baby tells me, let's run it back like a track meet. Now, let's go back to New London, the position I wanted, the one
Yeah.
I just had to have. While I was in Mississippi in that short 365 days,
That was long enough.
someone sent me an email from that district, and the superintendent wrote a letter. The same superintendent told me I would never be what. So much stuff was going wrong.
Mm.
He wrote a letter to the State Department of Education asking for them to take over the school district.
Mm-hmm. Because
When
so
the
much is
Lord
going
moves
wrong.
you out of the way, when He
Mhm.
moves you, nobody wants that on their resume.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the administrator, and then the state has to come in and take me over. Nobody wants that.
Right. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I didn't know that that was going to happen, but God knew. And He's
Yeah.
like, I have to take my child out of this because she doesn't need any part of this. That place has really not recovered since.
Mm.
Oh wow.
Yeah. That's just how the mischiefs happen there too. You
Oh
know.
yeah, but
like
that wasn't my work to do.
yeah, that wasn't your work to do.
Yeah.
You know. And it's like you never be the head of this. Uh-huh. Well, obviously you being the head of it didn't work at all. So,
Didn't work.
you know,
Except
I
me.
mean that's a monumental defeat that the state has to come over and take over because there is so much damage has been done.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage for you as well, as we talk about triumphs in the trenches, to be able to have the fortitude to say, I see this wrong, and there are so many people on here that's going to be affected by the wrong, that is doing the wrong, but yet the greater wrong is what's happening to the children in the community, and so it has to be rewritten to be a right way instead of the continuously going the wrong way, that we've learned so much from. I'm sorry to say, our white predecessors who have trained us to do the wrong. They want to say, "Well, you're doing so much wrong." Well, we learned this from you.
Yeah.
Sorry to
Because you
tell
know
you this.
what happens is they have already pushed us to the margins. But
Yeah.
when they get us out at the margins, what's to keep us there?
Right.
We keep each other there.
Right. Crabs in the barrel.
We keep each other at the margins. And as long as we keep doing that, the system is working as it is intended to work.
Intended. Yeah.
It is intended to work. And a part of my chapter that I talk about is one thing that you just said. That verse in the Bible where it says, if you look in the mirror and you look away and you forget what you look like, but sometimes you got to stand in that mirror and study yourself.
Yep. Yeah.
That's when you have to know, you know what? I am assimilating to things that I know do not help my people, but oppress my people. And
Right.
I need to unlearn that, and I need to do things differently. And it might mean that I'm not going to have those friends. It might mean that my uncle's jokes at Thanksgiving aren't funny anymore. It may mean I'm speaking truth to power to things where people have had their blinders on them. Because what I will say is 2 or 3 generations ago, with my great grandparents and great great grandparents, they did what they needed to do to survive.
Yeah.
My parents did what they needed to do to provide. And I, with my children now, am doing what we need to thrive. And there's a difference.
Yeah. There is a difference.
I like those 3 levels. Yeah. This is deep. Everything with you. That's why I love when you come on. It's so you break it down, because at first when I was reading, when I asked you what your topic you want to talk about, you told me this. When I pulled up the stuff on the book, I'm like, wow. The first thing I thought, because we're theater critics, we seen the play, The Green Book. We seen
Yep.
the movie, The Green Book. And I said, now we got our girl on here talking about the Green Book in the workplace for professional African Americans. And some of the topics you had real quick was in the book totally.
Mhm.
Uncover systematic workplace practices,
Mhm.
practical strategies, empowerment through mindset,
Pick up your paper.
Yeah.
and chapter highlight creating equity in aging. That's deep. Aging in the workplace for
Yes.
African Americans.
Yes.
I,
Because
I gotta say this real quick, because we got about maybe 10 minutes left. Can you come back next Tuesday?
and you got my co-author Zenny on there, but I love her.
Um, we got we'd be nice if we can have you to come back next Tuesday. We can talk about because there's a lot to
It's a
unravel
lot
in
to
here,
unpack. It really, really is.
and even the three things that Brenda brought up, it's something that we really need to dive into because I mean, to it's an understatement that we need still today in 2025 a green book to
To
triumph
navigate.
over the trenches because we go through a lot of treacherous things, and that's not a word, but treacherous things. We go through some treacherous things
Yep.
that we have to go into the trenches for. And I like this couple of things that she brought up, and I want you to kind of dive more deeply in that. But I want to know, is this book something that people can buy?
Absolutely. At care2empower.org. And it's CARE, the number 2, empower, EMPOWER.org.
So make sure you send that to Brenda so we can share it. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that I buy the book. And if I buy the book, we'll be able to get your signature on the book too.
Of course.
Okay, so I want to make sure we have the book in our hands by next Tuesday. So she's gonna find out what it is. We're gonna buy the book tonight, so we can get it out to us,
No
and so we can at least have it here, as well.
You text me all of that information.
I just did.
Yeah. So we need to have that information because I really want to dive into this because it's so much. There's so much fruit. There's so much nourishment, so much in there that I think that even some younger African Americans need to understand because the Green Book at that time was done for the safety
Yep.
of African Americans. So when they traveled from one place of another, they could do it at a safe time and be able to know the correct distance to go before you did that lights out where you could stop at within your journey. So you might have been trying to go from Chicago to California. Well, you wasn't going to make that there before it got dark. So you had to have places you had to stop. Well, in our society today, we need to know the places where we need to go to be able to make it through our journey and how we have to maybe take some stops in our lives to be able to understand the things that we need to do and be able to recoup from some of the trials and tribulations we went through and learn from them so when we make our next journey to our next situation or our next destination we have a more thorough understanding of how we should go. And I think this book will break that down.
Absolutely. And know when it's your time to move.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Because the Lord makes the eagle's nest uncomfortable. That's when the eaglets have to fly. Sometimes your nest is uncomfortable. We get something when we get complacent.
Yeah.
And you can't because he has other work for you to do. The harvest is plenty. He's got stuff for us to do, and we all can't do the same thing.
Right.
So, I would have been content staying where I was for 20 years and retiring, but that wasn't his plan for me.
Yeah.
So that we have to get people to understand that. And the people that I had to talk to the most were not my contemporaries about that. It was the generation before me. Because what were they doing? They were working to provide.
Right.
So my mother and father, you found yourself a quote unquote good job. You better stay there and keep your head down, your mouth closed, and retire and have your good pension. But I'm a disruptor. That's what the Lord put me here for. but the disruption is within his will,
Right.
Right.
not of my own. Because
Yeah.
I would have chosen none of that. Trust and believe.
You ain't causing no chaos out here.
Well, you know, sometimes you have to
plan and a
be,
purpose.
you have to, you know, disrupt things so things can go into God's will. You know,
He always brought a remnant out. Come on now.
yeah, amen.
Didn't
I'm
he?
trying to see. You said
Right.
uncover systematic workplace practices. I love the uncover systematic workplace practice. I mean, wow, that's
First of all,
that's a mouthful within itself.
Right. That's not what's written in the handbook. It's not what's written in the policy book. Because when they bring you in the workplace, they always tell you, "Oh, go to HR if you have one."
Right,
HR is not your friend.
right.
Okay. HR is not your friend.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
They are
Your
employed.
contract and your common sense and your integrity, that's your friend.
Right.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have to know what to, and you know, they're good on, oh, come out and have a drink with us and socialize. But see, if that's not what you do, that's not your comfort zone. It's okay to go out and have a soda and say, I'm on my way.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, but we have to understand that sometimes people are playing chess when we're still trying to sit over here and play checkers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You don't need anybody to, those are the systemic practices that we don't see. It's, you know, we're gonna follow the policy when it's dealing with Shirley. But when it's dealing with you, well, you know, it's not really written, but this is the way we do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You have to be able to pick up on all them little key nuances
Mhm.
that keep blocking you. And sometimes we will stay in like a hamster's wheel. We'll just keep spinning and spinning and spinning. And hopefully with these books, you know, volume 1 and volume 2, we're trying to bring light some of those nuances that we saw and how we
Mhm.
navigated them and what
Yeah.
structures and systems you can do.
Yeah.
So you can, you know, you can do and you can follow so that you're not in the trench, but you can, but the important thing is we want you to know you can triumph while you're in the trenches.
Right in the trenches. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now
And,
somebody got to be in the trenches doing the work.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And you know, it's like,
I'm
hey,
standing on somebody's shoulder. Maya Angelou and those
Mhm.
ancestors have gone on, and our fighters, they're you know, they're not gonna, somebody else has to stand up. Somebody can stand on my shoulders.
Mm.
so I got you for next Tuesday. I need, you
Yes,
know,
I mean for next Tuesday.
okay, because I definitely want to jump into this uncover systematic workplace practices, and I think you know, hopefully you get a lot of young people listening on this show so they can
Yeah.
learn something because, you know, setting those breadcrumbs and letting people know the wisdom of how they should travel and what they should do. It's called train up a child in the way he should go. This is it could be paramount to helping them understand.
Mhm.
Not only because you wrote the book, but you've experienced
Her chapters
the
in-
things that has been in the book as well. Yeah.
Now, would you be opposed to me bringing on one of
Nope.
my co-authors? Okay.
Nope.
All right. If they're, I will see if
No.
they're available, and
Yep.
they can tell you because we have someone talk about finance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our parents was trying to make ends meet, man. If my mama sent me down the street to buy 2 pieces of bologna, that's what I went to the butcher and got.
I tell you, get the other person because I got about a minute and a half left before we got to get
Okay.
out of here. But if you bring the other person on, we'll run the whole segment just talking about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All
And
right.
then I'll be asking you for their name, of course, and the picture and everything.
And all that stuff. Okay. Sure will.
So we'll do that. Family, we love you. Thank you for being here as always. This
Thank
girl
you.
has some wisdom that we want to share, so we want to
Yes.
make sure we share that. And we got to get out of here. We got about 30 seconds before Kenny
Oh.
cuts us off. Maybe on the show. We'll see you next Tuesday, okay?
See you next
I'll be there.
All
Thank
right,
you
and-
so much.
And
All
for
right.
those of you all that are still listening to us on Soar Radio, YouTube, and Facebook, especially Soar Radio, we're going to get out of here. Come back next Tuesday, 7 o'clock, because we've got a lot of information uncovered with this book. Triumph in the Trenches is going to be amazing. So check out with us next Tuesday, 7 p.m. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
YouTube, Facebook, love you. Thank you for being here. Hey, go out and find some young entrepreneur, someone who's really trying to make it, triumph through the trenches. going through some trials and tribulations, trying to learn how to navigate through the process, definitely look at, be here, because I remember one time I was working as a credit manager, and they didn't know I was walking past the office, and I shared this many times, and they said basically, we like Rick, he's a nice guy, but do we want a black guy over our finances? Trying to triumph over the trenches. Sometimes, like she said, you need to know, sometimes, you need to go another direction. Sometimes, no matter how hard you do things, to be outside of the trenches, you're going to have to deal with a racist situation where you're going to have to be able to learn how to fight while you're in there. And so this is going to be something we really want to stretch out and get you to learn that. So make sure you're with us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. And see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.